Hi, my name is Marian Broderick and I am thrilled to announce that my new book, Wild Irish Love, will be in bookshops from November 2021. This is a collection of great romances from Irish history, and I would like to give a short reading now of the love story of James Joyce and Nora Barnacle. As you can see, the book has this handy ribbon so I don't lose my place. There are good first dates and bad first dates, and then there are those that go down in history. When James Joyce took Nora Barnacle for a walk on the 16th of June 1904, it was such a profound experience for them both that it changed their lives beyond recognition and was immortalised in fiction. Nora was a good-looking 20-year-old from Galway City when she bumped into James on Nassau Street, Dublin, one sunny June day. She had recently absconded from her home in Galway and was working as a chambermaid and waitress in nearby Finn's Hotel. 22-year-old James was supposed to be working as a book reviewer, but instead was drinking and debauching his way around Dublin City. They were introduced by a mutual friend. When Nora met James, she didn't think much of him. He looked like a Swedish sailor on shore leave with his battered yachting cap, threadbare trousers, and the tattiest tennis shoes she'd ever seen. He was handsome, but unhappy, with no money, no publisher for his work, and no permanent home. He was on a downward spiral, regularly drowning his sorrows and frequenting brothels. His only asset was a rock-solid confidence in his own genius, which no one else shared. But when James met Nora, he liked what he saw very much indeed. Nora was tall, with masses of auburn hair and a beautiful West of Ireland accent. She had a slight squint in one eye, which made her look sleepy and sexy. She was bright, funny, and as he would very soon discover, sensual. He wasted no time in asking her to go out with him. They arranged to meet in Merrion Square, but on this first occasion Nora didn't show up. Maybe she'd had second thoughts about getting involved with this well-spoken Jacqueline with the raggedy clothes, or maybe she simply had to work. Whatever the reason, James persevered. He wrote the first of what would turn out over the years to be hundreds of letters to Nora. He admitted he was so short-sighted that even if she had turned up, he might well have missed her. Nora wrote back agreeing to meet him the following evening, 16th of June. This day is still celebrated by Joyce lovers in Dublin as Bloomsday, and indeed across the world. But even the biggest Joyce fan couldn't describe the original outing as glamorous. James and Nora hadn't a bean between them, so their first date consisted not of dinner or dancing, but a 4-kilometre or 2.5-mile hike through the rough eastern suburb of Ringsend to Sandymount Strand. Love may not have been in the air just yet, but lust certainly was. Their chemistry was sizzling, and once they were in the sand dunes, things got physical. This was incredibly forward behaviour, and all the more remarkable because it was Nora who took the lead, and not for the last time in their relationship. Over the summer, James and Nora found they had much in common. Both had incorrigible alcoholic fathers and a fractured upbringing. Both were sent away from home as children, James to boarding school and Nora to her grandmother's house. Neither had much time to spend time with their families. Both were inclined to flout social norms and challenge convention. James was courteous and kind, but to genteel Irish society, his uncompromising honesty made him seem rude. He publicly despised his Catholic upbringing and the church itself, which in turn despised him back. He hated conventions such as marriage and baptism. His writing was incomprehensible to many and condemned as obscene. As for Nora, she too had a very unconventional streak. As a teenager, she used to steal men's clothes and go out in them. She also dated a Protestant, which was enough to earn her the beating from her uncle that made her run away from Galway. While the young James Joyce railed against the narrowness of Irish society, the young Nora Barnacle simply refused to be trapped in the life into which she'd been born. Many people, both at the same time and since, were snobby about Nora's background, particularly her lack of education, the implication being that the girl who left school at 12 years old couldn't communicate with a UCD graduate. Of course, it was nonsense. Nora was highly intelligent and entertaining. She and James never stopped talking. Whereas James was frightened of many things, including thunder, dogs, and machinery, Nora feared nothing. Whereas he held grudges, she forgave in an instant. She wasn't one bit dazzled by the genius she called simple-minded Jim. By the end of summer 1904, James was obsessing about leaving Ireland for Europe. Nora again took the lead, telling him that if he was going, so was she. James, at first incredulous, slowly came round to the idea because not only was he in love with Nora, but she'd become essential to his peace of mind. He recognised that she would be his rock, his safe place in a chaotic world, his little bit of Ireland. He was proud to take responsibility for her, but he was also honest with her. He told her there would be no wedding ring, no nice house, and not much money. He was a writer, first and foremost, and would stay a writer. As long as she was able to accept these conditions, they'd be happy. Nora accepted. Leaving her hotel job and accommodation was brave. Nora would have known many a song and story about what happened to unmarried women as soon as a baby was on the way. But she loved James and she trusted him. And if she needed to get out of her humdrum existence with its claustrophobic future, he was the man to help her. Her wild side was ready for a leap into the unknown. On the 9th of October, 1904, having scrounged the fares, Nora and James boarded a ship bound for Liverpool en route to Paris and set sail for their new life. Joyce Sr., tearfully waving his favourite child off from Northwall, Dublin, was unaware that James had taken Nora with him. The two had boarded separately to avoid gossip. Nora didn't even tell her family she was leaving Ireland, and when she did write, she omitted to mention that she wasn't married. Despite this inauspicious start, Nora and James were to remain partners and soulmates for the rest of their lives.